Good morning, and welcome to Austin. Unfortunately, I don't have the comedic skills of Ann. I'm not a James, who is he? Leno, Leno or Jimmy Fallon. So I will try and keep this on point. I will try and make sure that I add a little bit of levity as we go along. But most importantly, I want you to have fun. I want you to enjoy. And I'm just pleased to be here, and I hope that we can all spend some time during the day, and particularly this evening, networking and making sure that we walk away today with something we didn't have when we walked in the room. So again, thank you for having me here today. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what is a change maker, being a change maker, and innovation, and how to drive innovation within your company. And these are the things that I've done. But I hope that, again, you can take something from that, a nugget from that, and help yourself as if you have spec-right, how you can get it in your company, or if you don't, these are things you can use to help get it in your company. So a little bit about me, and Laura talked about me enough, but I am the global head and vice president of packaging at OFI. I have 25 plus years in the packaging industry, in food, consumer, and pharmaceutical. I am a proud Spartan, and I've taken some curriculum at the University of Pennsylvania Wharton in their executive education. And as you can see, I've worked all over the world in every place that possibly can work. So Kraft, Colgate, Johnson & Johnson, Kind, Campbell's, and Bristol-Myers Squibb. As a matter of fact, I didn't even know that their logo had changed to this. It's been so long since I worked for them. I've done all of that, and I'm still only the ripe old age of 27. So, what can I say? What can I say? I wanted to tell you a little bit about OFI before I get into this, because people are like, well, who is OFI? Well, first of all, you may know the company Olam Foods, and we've recently rebranded. And we rebranded because we're moving from the commodity market, which we're not necessarily moving from that, but we're broadening ourselves, and we're going into private label. We've been in private label for many, many years, but we haven't focused on that. So we're spending a lot of time now focusing on the private label. So it was established in 1989. We operate in 60 countries, and we have 81,000 employees. So I just joined at the end of June, much larger than I ever thought. I walked in there and thought, oh my God, I've heard of this company, but I just wasn't aware of how big it was. It's like, it's like that iceberg where you see the tip and then you walk in and you think, oh my God, what have I gotten myself into? But let me just tell you a little bit about some of the products which you may not be aware of. We focus on 5 products: cocoa, and 1 in 5 chocolate bars that are manufactured in the US come from ingredients from Olam cocoa. 90 billion cups of coffee are made with our coffee beans. 32 billion slices of cheese are made with some of our dairy products. 350 million cupcakes are made from our almond flour. And 270 million bottles of spices are sold annually. So it's a much larger company than you'd ever expect. And I give you those metrics because as we talk, you can understand the scope that we have for packaging and specs. And the fact that I'm in a system now where we have no specs, we have no process, you can understand the breadth of what we need to do. And this is how spec-right is going to help us move forward. So I wanted to start with the definition of innovation. And the definition of innovation from Webster's. And I'm going to read it, which I don't like to do. It is a new idea, a device, or a method. It's the active process of introducing new ideas, devices, or methods. It's not always being the biggest and the brightest. It's something new. And that's what I want you to focus on. And that's what I've focused on my entire career when I talk about innovation. It's new, it's different, it's change, it's challenge. So I've taken this and I've broadened it a bit for myself. So what it really means to me is, first of all, challenge the status quo. When you go into companies and they tell you, well, we've always done this way before, or Bill is the only person who can handle this. it's challenging that. And it's like, great, can I talk to Bill? Why are you the only one that can handle it? Can you help me understand what you do? Can you share that information so that we can make sure that it's spread across the organization? So it's challenging the status quo. It's positioning the business for the future. It's not looking at what we're doing today. It's looking at what we need to do 5 years from now. At OFI, we're very big on looking at smaller companies and acquisition. So if you're in an environment where you're looking at acquisition, you got to figure out, I'm bringing in all these different companies, all these different systems. How am I going to make sure that when we do that, that they're all on the same, we have the same playing field, we're getting the information that we need from all of them at a couple strokes of the keys or cutting a couple buttons. So it's very important to keep the position and where you want to be in the future in mind. I look for innovation for me. Personal growth. Coming here today, it's a little bit of innovation. Speaking in front of you guys, that's innovation. It's gaining new skills, it's working on new projects, it's working on new and different things. That for me is personal innovation. And finally, it's really enjoying what you do and having fun. And I do enjoy what I do. Having been in packaging for all those years and only being 25. Did I say 25 or 27? 27. Okay. All right, I'm 27. Okay. This is what happens when you have old age at 27. You can't remember what you just said. So, I have been in packaging many, many years now. I've taken some Johnson quality and operations, but I've always had my hand in packaging. So I love what I do, and I'm glad that I've been able to evolve as I move on to other organizations. So enough about all of that. So why am I here? I want to talk to you today a little bit about the journey that I've had with specs and with SpecRite and how we got to where we are. So the first case study that I want to talk to you about is, you saw all those companies that I was involved in. And at each one, there were major pain points. And I love this graphic because it's exaggerated a little bit, but it demonstrates what actually occurred. I will not share the company, but we had one single resident computer that had a pallet design software. And so we had quite a few engineers, and anytime you were working on a spec, and working on a spec was tedious enough. You had to go over here to this file to get this information. You had to go talk to someone over here who knew about that operation and that line to get that information. But then you got it all together on paper, nothing on a computer. You had it all together on paper, and then we had to go stand in a line while people went through the packaging specification, this packaging pallet system. And it was the most tedious, worthless time that I have ever spent in my career, and it stuck with me. It stuck with me, and what I said is if I was ever in a position that I could implement something in a company, this was what I was going to make sure never, ever happened again. I wanted specification development to be very efficient. I wanted it to be easy and not convoluted. So I was tasked to come up with a system because working in the company Kind, an awesome company, didn't have that system, and we were growing leaps and bounds. And so there was resident knowledge, there was knowledge in files, there was knowledge on people's desks, and it was how do I pull this all together? So I took my experience of this pain point and some other pain points in other companies, and I was searching for some software. And I reached out to my dear friend Tom, and I said, what can you provide? And Tom is very much a yes man. I love that. Thank you. So Tom said, what can I do? And so we talked and we talked and we talked, and we actually met at APAC Expo. And I said, the only thing that I need to move forward is you integrate this with TOPS, because we were using TOPS separately, and we were starting to look at a specification system. And I was so tired of taking all the information we had, retyping it into TOPS, and then taking that out of TOPS, and then making a PDF, and then sending it over, and did I put it in the right file, and my team as well. And so it was just very tedious, and I said, I want you to integrate. And Tom said, sure, we can do that. So he introduced me to Iman at that conference, and we actually walked over to the TOPS table, which was, I think, a couple rows over, and the rest is absolute history. So this is the outcome, which to me is absolutely fabulous. I will tell you in total transparency, was it the easiest destination to get to? No, it was not. But we got there. And it was absolutely the best to be able to put everything into the system, press a button which said launch TOPS, and it would launch TOPS. Now, I'm not the technical person, and I'm looking at Iman, so if I'm saying things wrong, shake your head. But okay, Ravi. and my buddy Ravi really made this work. But you press a button that says launch TOPS, it goes in and it launches TOPS, and it populates it with the information. And then you, as you would normally do, you select whatever palette pattern, and you then hit a button, and you're able to send it back to the spec-right software. Absolutely game changer. Absolute innovation, and made this one of it made a decision that once I left Kind, and now I'm at OFI, I have to use this. I have to use this from a company that's willing to step out there and say, I don't know about this, but I will learn. I will figure it out. So this is one of the things that I am very proud of, and I'm very happy about spec-right for doing. So again, when I talk about being a change maker and driving it within your company, there's a couple rules that I follow. First, you identify the problem. What is it you're trying to solve? Then understand the pain points. You know, the pain is not necessarily with you. In a system where you don't have controlled specifications, I'll give you an example. When I walked into OFI, they were buying bottles from the same supplier, but they were located in 2 different countries. And they were having the same issues. But because they hadn't talked to each other, because we did not have a spec system, because we had nothing that they can look in and see, well, hey, we're using this here, here, and here, we were doing individual corrections. And they were different. And so we needed to make sure that we understand what the pain points are. We need to paint the vision for a better way. And sometimes to do that, it has to be visual. And what I did with Tom is I asked him on in OFI, I said, I need you to help me sell this. So Tom took some images, we gave him some specs, and he was then able to build a page or 2 or 3, I don't know, and do okay. Tom and team, I don't know who was involved. But, you know, and it was a demo, and I took that demo to senior leaders, and they were like, light bulb, mind blown. We can do this. I never knew there was something out there that can do this. So you want to paint a vision for a better way. And I'm sorry, I digress. I did not introduce that I have a coworker here, Ann O'Haran, who's really excited about working with spec-right. And, and you know, and this is part of understanding the pain. She's working in another division that we have and trying to pull everything together. And so when she saw this system, she was like, this is it for me. So it's really understanding the pain. And you give them a personal reason to believe. And that, again, is the visual of this is what it could be for you. This is operations saying, this is great. If I know these are my options out here, I can set up the equipment to run this through this, instead of every time we have a new product, we have a change in the component size. We have a change in the bottle height. We have a change in the label size. So you know, you give them a reason to believe, and you define what the business value is for them. So in essence, don't be a Lone Ranger. You know, I don't know how many in this room know who the Lone Ranger is. I see 1. Is that it? 2. Great. Next time I don't know. I'll find another image that's closer to you guys next time, okay? All right. And make sure you partner with others in your company. And even, even partner with peers that you're meeting today. Hey, how did you get this? How did you move this forward? What are your issues here? How are you addressing it? So you're not out there by yourself. So just quickly, I have a couple other case studies that I just wanted to share with you. And this one is once we got kind in the system and the data into spec-right, I was on a senior leadership call, and the COO just called me out. It was probably 30 people on this call, and anytime you hear your name on these kind of calls, you're like, what did I do? What did I do? I promise you I did everything you told me to do. And so he said, Victoria, I want to know how many bottles we have that run on XY line, and I want to know how many suppliers. And in the past, what we would have to say is, let me get back to you. Let me walk away. Let me go spend a half day doing research and figuring that out. What I was able to do with the use of spec-right is to go in and all those reports that I stressed Ayman and Ravi with that I needed, I was able to punch in a report, and my data was right there. So within minutes, I came back and said, hey, I have an answer for you. It's blah, blah, blah. And that in itself was a huge selling point, that I was able to get that information as quickly as I was. And another example is I wanted to share about O. Thompson, and this is the company that Ann is in. We recently acquired O. Thompson. And they were acquired prior, so there was a lot of different rules and guidelines and valleys and mountains and all kinds of things that we had to travel. But it was several spice companies that are now joined together, and now we're all under the OFI umbrella. As you can see from the photo, we have 5 different bottles, and there's differences in each one of those bottles. Is there a need? Do we have to do this? Is there a way that we can consolidate and impact sustainability, impact costs, increase efficiency on the lines? Those are things that we're looking to do now. So we have upwards of 3,000 SKUs for just this one brand. And we're looking to first build that foundation, put all that information there, and then we'll start making some decisions on what we need to do further. I will tell you, operations is ecstatic about looking at this because they're tired of changeover. They're tired of changeover, every 6 hours. And then you have, long periods of time for changeover. So that reduces your operational efficiency. So very much they're interested in looking at this. And we're also looking at selling this as a marketing selling point. When you talk to the customers, talk about the sustainability story that we now have, that we had X amount in the waste stream, and we now have Y amount in the waste stream. So these are things that you utilize in your task of day-to-day and how to move forward in building the community and camaraderie in using the system and continually being the change makers that we are all in this room. And finally, it's managing people and not just the technology. This is a picture of a weekend to OFI. We were in the almond fields, and I will tell you, as a product of the west side of Chicago, I didn't see a lot of almond trees growing up. Just telling you. I didn't even know what an almond looked like unless it was in a jar, And so to go into an almond field and actually see the trees and actually see how they shake them, and they do whatever they need to do. But when I talk about managing people, I talk about the people that are in this picture. I have a VP of sales, I have a VP of operations, I have an agronomist to understand what we need to know from a soil standpoint and how that impacts the loads that we have every year. So it's making sure that you involve people, it's making sure people feel heard. And it's for them, it's personalizing it. It's giving them a little bit of what they're going to get. They may not get everything that they want, but it's giving them a little bit of what they're asking for. So it's also just making sure that you include them in your decision making. Back to that Lone Ranger thing. Don't be a Lone Ranger. And finally, my lessons learned is to be clear on what you want and to define what you really are trying to do and get at. Be specific when you're talking to your leadership, and to have fun. I'm a geek. I like to push buttons. I like things to work. So that's it. So thank you very much. Oh, I have a little time for Q&A. Any questions? That's okay. Hold them all until, I'm sorry.
Too early to catch?
So my question is, I know you guys use spec-right for packaging specs. Are there other departments also using spec-right at your company? Oh, this is
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Oh, my question is, sorry. So is there other department in OFI use spec-rights?
No, they
Just
had never
packaging
heard
at
of
this point.
spec-right. But in making the decision to move forward and to basically sell this in, I brought in procurement, and I brought in operations, and I brought in quality as the major groups to be the foundation for the software.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. That's where you.
So from an integration back standpoint, once you've got the spec, and you had a tag about a common bill of material or getting to a complete bill of material, do you push that into MRP with demand?
That's the plan at OFI. We worked within JDE at Kind, and so yes, it is actually.
So you would then expand it beyond packaging to the actual product itself as a recipe being considered a spec, and this bill of material also as part of it?
What we did at Kind is we did the bill of material for packaging. But long term, as I talked about looking at where you want to be, I absolutely see flowing that through so that it is one.
Got it.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, so if there's any questions that you guys have, seek me out. I'm around today and would love to interact with all of you. But let's make sure that we connect today. So with no further ado,